Two, you have to deal with adversity. And I had that growing up. I had a very difficult childhood. I grew up with the last name of Slutsky. Can imagine what my nickname was growing up, and it wasn't Ski. So it gets very challenging. When you're a kid, people start making fun of your last name, and it gets to you. And so I had to learn to deal with it. Even when I became a professional speaker years ago, I went to the National Speakers Association, and we go to a workshop. And in the workshop, they're teaching us how to sell ourselves to the meeting planners. And since you are the brand, your name, you're what you're trying to sell, one of the techniques they taught us was when you give someone your name over the phone or in person, you use a rhyme or some sort of association to get them to remember your name. So everybody who was in there, about 20 people in this little workshop, had to write one down, and one after another, they had to stand up and give their example. The first one was Carol Ritz, who stood up and said, Ritz, like the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and sat back down. And then Mark Sanborn stood up and said, Sanborn, like Chasing Sanborn Coffee. And then Danny Cox stood up. And, well, he sat right back down. He didn't try it. And they go, Jeff, and without thinking, I stand up and go, Slutsky like a Polish prostitute. Everybody remembered me. Well, I think it was my grandmother that gave me my sense of humor and how to deal with it. And she came from a big family. She was the second to the oldest. And when my grandmother became a Slutsky, she married my grandfather, Harry Slutsky, my great aunt, and she only had one sister but 9 brothers. My great aunt, Eva, started making fun of her new last name. And she never forgave her for that. I mean, my grandmother thought the name was special and was a step up, but her maiden name was Lipschitz. But, But my grandmother gets the ultimate revenge. Several years later, my Aunt Eva gets married. She marries my Uncle Herman Hirsch. So she becomes a Hirsch. So Grandma starts sending her Hershey bars and all kinds of candy and stuff, and they go back and forth all the time making fun of each other's names. And so my grandmother gets, I think, the ultimate revenge. Several years go by. Eva is pregnant, and she's doing a home delivery, and this goes back a ways, and it was hot in July, and she was in the bedroom with the doctor, and Grandma's helping out, but all the aunts and uncles are there just sweating it out. And apparently there were some complications with the delivery, and she's screaming, and finally it stops, and you hear a little slap, and the baby starts crying. Well, then Eva starts screaming again. Everybody's in shock. She screams for another 10 minutes. You hear another slap. Now 2 babies are crying in tandem. My grandmother rushes out of the bedroom, announces to the entire family, we have 2 new Hershey's, one with nuts and one without. Thank you very much. That's all the time I have.